I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? No. You're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review, and this review is going to be for 2025's last weekend's new release, Caught Stealing, the new film directed by Darren Aronofsky and starring Austin Butler. So what is the plot of Caught Stealing? So, Hank Thompson is this time ago, he was this hotshot high school baseball prospect. Eventually, though, an injury turned him into an unlucky alcoholic, and went nowhere bartender mistakenly then gets caught in this treasure hunt through New York City, and it turns out that the cat that Hank's neighbor left in his care was sitting on a secret. And it's hidden at the bottom of his cage is this key wanted by a sadistic cop, Russian mobsters, Samoan hitman, and a pair of psycho brothers who dress in leather gear. Yeah, so that's the plot of the film. So, as for my reaction, as you all know, when it comes to Darren Aronofsky, I like some of his works. I'm not big on him as a person. Whenever it comes to his religious shit that he puts in a lot of his recent movies, but he has done a lot of movies I love. Requiem for a Dream is my #1 favorite movie of his. The Wrestler is also a really great film. Easily one of the last great wrestling movies for quite a while. Especially one of Mickey Rourke's last great films. It's probably his second best film. Black Swan, I think, is a horror masterpiece. Pie is enjoyable. And the last movie he did before this, The Whale, was actually a very amazing comeback for Brendan Fraser, and he definitely deserved the Oscar for that role, no doubt. I think the problems I have now when it comes to my thoughts on The Whale, I like it. I like Brendan Fraser's performance. I like the emotion and role he gives in the character. That you can see why he deserved the Oscar for that role. The stuff I don't like is the religious moments in the film. Fuck the daughter character. I hated her so much. Most of the side characters I didn't like. Ty Simpkins wasn't bad. But the rest of the side characters I did not like either of. Those were my problems with the film. But I still like the film. In the opening scene where we get introduced to his character. That also I didn't like. But I like the rest of the film though. Now, Darren Aronofsky has done films I do not like. The Fountain was forgettable. Noah, I think, is an absolute piece of shit. The Noah film he did with Russell Crowe, where it's not even accurate to the story, and you make Noah such an irredeemable piece of shit in that adaptation where he wants to kill his pregnant daughter, or he seems perfectly fine letting a little girl die getting trampled to death, and then suddenly Darren tries to force in a stupid redemption arc despite the fact that he did nothing to deserve it in that version. Despite the fact that Guy tried to murder his own daughter as soon as she was pregnant. I hate Noah. It's probably one of the worst Bible films made. And then I think his worst movie is Mother. That film I despise with a burning passion. And you know something? That was a film I was kind of curious on. When the film came out, I ended up not liking it. Mother was very nauseating. The last 30 minutes, the nauseating shit in the last 30 minutes dragged on forever, which was very migraine-inducing. I do not want to see a bunch of people crowd surf a baby, cannibalize it. I don't want to see that shit. And I think Darren got all mad about the criticisms and the F from CinemaScore. Like, dude, people don't want to, maybe people don't want to see that shit. Maybe that's why they got mad. Even I don't. I may like gore once in a while, but God, I don't want to see babies get murdered on camera. Then I saw the trailer for this movie, and it did intrigue me to see him direct a movie like this. Because this is something kind of film he usually would never direct, so seeing him direct some kind of dark comedy crime action film had me interested. And I do like Austin Butler as an actor. I liked him in Elvis. I liked him in Dune Part 2. So, I saw the film last night. How was it? Honestly, I would have to say I honestly like this film. I would honestly consider it the Darren's best film he's done since Black Swan. Yeah, the first time I've loved a Darren film a lot since Black Swan. I've seen better movies this year, but it's a good way to kick off into the fall season. So, how is this made? Well, this is an adaptation of a book by David Hayter, who wrote a book trilogy, and this is the first book in that trilogy, which was about Hank Thompson. It was written by Charlie Huston, and it was in development for 2013, and Patrick Wilson was originally set in the lead role. Then a new film adaptation got reported being in development at Sony in March 2024, and Huston adopted his own novel, and Darren would direct the project. Now Austin Butler was attached to star, and Darren's company Protozoa Pictures would produce. Then in July 2024, Zoe Kravitz and Regina King joined the cast. Then Matt Smith, Lee Schreiber, Bad Bunny got added to the cast, and Griffin Dunne, Vincent D'Onofrio, Diafaro, and Action Bronson joined the following month. Then in December 2024, Carol Kane had joined the cast. And then Tegnok Hurta, Norpin Clark also joined the cast. Then filming began in September 2024 in New York City. And then after the film was officially shot and completed and marketed, it would be produced by Columbia Pictures with Protozoa Pictures, and was released in the United States by Sony Pictures on August 29, 2025, last weekend on Labor Day weekend, and has received positive reviews from critics. And I think Labor Day weekend it made $9 million domestically opening weekend, which is kind of typical for a Darren film. Because he's never really been a big money, none of his films are really big money makers. So let's get on with the good qualities in the story of Caught Stealing, and what makes it actually good. So, this picture is directed by Darren Aronofsky, and the story is very clever and unpredictable. Hell, like, this is a movie that, when I watched this film, it felt like I was actually, like, watching a 90s-style thriller. And that's the thing. This movie is set in 1998. It even has the feel of a film shot in 1998, even. That's what I liked about it. It felt really vintage. It really felt like something directed by, Guy Ritchie, or a Guy Ritchie crime caper that was in a gritty, authentic New York setting. Or maybe like films from directors like, John McTiernan, or Paul Verhoeven. Not as overly extreme like Paul Verhoeven's other films, but it really does kind of feel like that. It feels like those directors in a way. The cast delivers the live performances, the plot is packed with sharp twists and turns, the cinematography and camera angles are impressive, and the tension and style get enhanced throughout. And of course, the action in the movie, the action's not really frequent, but it is top tier. You got the abrupt fight scenes, the car chases, the bursts of gore occasionally, and some intense shootouts that land with impact. And even the subplots, those tied to the chase and crashes, are well executed. And of course, the ending is actually pretty satisfying for a Darren Aronofsky film. And the soundtrack is brilliant. Like, another thing though. This movie is advertised as a comedy, as a more dark comedy, and to be honest, it's really not. It's not really a dark comedy. It actually is kind of a serious film. Like, I don't know why Sony decided they needed to advertise this as a dark comedy film when it's not really one. I don't know whoever thought that would be a smart idea. It really wasn't. Because that's going to make people think it's a dark comedy, and they're going to go see it and go, there was nothing funny about this. That's going to be a problem. But it's a good crime thriller. Like, it's not something we haven't seen before, and like, there's tons of better crime movies, but but what made this actually good, the characters, the cinematography, and there are still small doses of humor. I forgot to mention that, but it's not a humorous film. It's not an overly humorous film. They make the movie stand out. And it is pretty violent and gritty and darker than definitely advertised. So how do we start off the film? So This movie takes place in 1998, and Henry Hank Thompson, what we see of our main character, that's Austin Butler's character, he's living as just a bartender that was once this high school baseball player, but he's haunted by this car crash that killed his friend Dale, and he had a permanent knee injury, so he couldn't really play baseball anymore. But now, he's now working as a bartender on the Lower East Side, and he has a girlfriend named Yvonne that's played by Zoe Kravitz, who I will admit, I don't mind Zoe Kravitz. I liked her Catwoman in the Robert Pattinson Batman film. I will say that I really liked her in the Batman. So it's nice to see her in this. And I thought she was good in this, despite the little screen time she gets. And occasionally he calls his mother every day, who lives in California, and discuss like the love of the San Francisco Giants, the baseball team in New York. And of course, then, like right here, you know where the story's kind of going. You kind of see this, and he's kind of good friends with his boss at the bar, and his girlfriend comes to the bar occasionally, and then they go home together, and the cast really does give the film some well thought out stuff. Like, it doesn't really, like, nobody really gives that bad of a performance in front of whether it's Austin Butler, whether it's Regina King, whether it's like Kravitz or Matt Smith. Like, you can tell they clearly enjoyed their roles. And the director really does, well, Darren Aronofsky does keep the pace moving along. And it ended up being a highly entertaining film. The plot was bonkers, it worked well. There are some tense and some funny moments. It's not always like easy to get right, but the script is very sparing and well balanced. And of course, when it comes to Austin Butler in this film, he delivers another superb performance. Like, ever since Elvis, he's had a lot of great roles, and he's coming another one of the best actors of this decade. Like, his acting style is very unique, especially compared to what you usually see a lot of. And the film is going to be another perfect addition for his filmography. Another great director he's worked with. I mean, I make some as a person, but he actually does direct a lot of great films. So I can still call him a great director. One of my favorite parts about this film is definitely the character development that Hank goes through. Like, he's this different person at the beginning of the film, and then where he's kind of this alcoholic that's kind of, depressed and kind of out of luck, but then he gets dragged into this whole scenario. And then, of course, he starts to kind of harden up the more and more the film progresses. And when it comes to the plot of getting the main character, like, the feeling does begin to creep in at the film. At first, like, you think the film would just be average and not be too memorable, but once the increasing pace and immersive stuff happens, like, the film gets more and more memorable as the movie progresses and goes on. So, after Hank and his girlfriend Yvonne close up the bar and go home, you meet his British punk neighbor Russ, that's back in London to see his ailing father, and so he leaves Hank to take care of his cat named Bud, who we know that Bud is apparently a biter, and as they're like arguing, this one neighbor's like, "Hey, I get you guys this lifestyle, but I have to work it's 4 a.m. in the morning, and I gotta work," and they're arguing, and you find out that this neighbor, this rolls out throughout the film is that he makes websites, or some call him this content creator or something, but they often be confused as kind of this gag throughout the film. But then, of course, they go back home. They spend the night together. But you find out there's these 2 Russian mobsters named Alexei and Pavel who are searching for Russ, and so they get confused when they see Hank, and so they cause Hank to lose a kidney by viciously beating the crap out of him. And then they break into Russ's apartments. Then we meet Regina King's character, Detective Roman, who questions Hank and reveals that Russ was this drug dealer connected to these Hasidic brothers named Lipa and Shmuley. Oh yeah, and of course, when he lost that kidney, like, Yvonne took him to the hospital, and she laid down the rules that one of them is that he cannot drink. And so he pretty much is forced to dump all of his alcohol balls, but the cat, like, knocks one onto his sheets, like, "Are you serious right now? Like, this is why I prefer dogs." And then, of course, he goes to have to go wash the bedding, and he sees this homeless guy that lives near his street and near his apartment, outside his door, and homeless guy asks him, you got any cans that are only bottles? And he actually is decent. He actually, in a way, actually has a pretty good relationship and is pretty helpful with the homeless guy whenever he sees him. So I do kind of like that in there. But he goes to wash his bedding, and then of course the break into the apartment part happens, and during the scene with Roman is like questioning Hank, this one cop asks, "Can I use the bathroom?" And because some of the alcohol got dumped in his toilet, it overflows. Like, sorry, kind of flooded the toilet, but yeah, of course. And after the cops leave, and he sees this key hidden in Bud's litter box, and so then randomly, he starts to kind of get nervous, and so he kind of breaks his oath and spends his drunken night at the bar he works at. But he leaves his clothes outside the building, and so he gets interrogated by the Russians and their associate Colorado. And after Yvonne like picked him up from that bar, berated the boss for giving him a bunch of drinks as they were celebrating like the team winning. And then like he kind of argues with her, and then she storms off. And then of course you have them interrogating him in his apartment, but he can't remember what happened to the key. But then of course the neighbor that you saw earlier interrupts them. And you find out they injured Bud because he bit one of them. So Hank leaves Bud with Yvonne. And then he remembers when he took the key to the bar, when he went to have that drunk night. But these drunkers then chase him. And he informs them in Colorado that who mentions Yvonne. And so Hank realizes she's in danger. And so he goes back to the apartment. But it turns out while Bud is still alive, she's unfortunately been shot dead in the head. And that was one gripe I had with the film, because did you really need to kill off Yvonne? Did you really have to kill her off? I don't think you needed to kill her off. And I kind of wish they didn't, because I like this character. And when I saw her killed off, and when I saw that she died in the film, I was like, oh man. Because I liked her character. Like, I thought the scenes that her and Austin Butler had, I thought they made a very good couple. I wish she survived the film. I thought it was stupid that they just killed her off like that. But Hank is now guilt-stricken, and he confides in Roman, who wants to retire to Tulum, and so Colorado, then of course, you find out right here, once he finally decides to spill the guts to Roman, they go to this coffee shop, and then you kind of find out a shocking twist. It turns out Roman, the backup that Roman called, is Colorado and the Russians. It turns out Roman is actually in charge of all of them. She's a corrupt cop. They actually worked with her the whole time. So that was a very shocking reveal. Right there. You think maybe Colorado and the Russians would be brought to justice, but then they show up and they're the backup, and turns out she wants that key too, and what it accesses a lot of money, but it turns out they're not responsible for the death of Yvonne. So Hank has to go to Paul's, go back to the bar, and Colorado kills one of the regulars at the bar, but then Roman kills him before he can also murder Paul, and so Paul lies that the key's in the basement safe, but he actually gets a shotgun to shoot them, but they shoot Paul dead, and so Paul's dead, and Hank goes to the strong room, locks himself in there, and so the others end up leaving empty-handed because Hank doesn't remember where the key is, even though they ask him numerous times. But then, of course, after that, Hank finally realizes, it turns out the homeless guy you saw earlier, he had abandoned his clothes with him, and he recovers the key from him, and he actually lets the homeless guy keep the pants. Because, yeah, like I said, the guy is actually very helpful and actually polite to the homeless guy. Actually, he didn't kind of share some of his stuff with him. So yeah, that's one of the things what makes Hank actually a pretty likable protagonist. So, and of course, in the ironic moment, just as he gets the key back, Russ is back home. But Hank mistakes him for another intruder and hits him in the head with a baseball bat. And it turns out that Russ had sold drugs for the drunkers at nightclubs in Colorado. And he was forced to involve Roman, and that owes money to the Russians' boss. And so you find out, the reason why these people are all after this key is because This key unlocks a storage unit that first looks like a bunch of clothes, and even Russ jokingly states when they go there, "Welcome to Narnia," and opens the jackets, and it turns out it's $4 million in there. That's kind of what the various party that's meant for this to be split between these parties when he left for London. But Russ now realizes the whole predicament and is now fearing his life, and he's about to take the money and flee the country, but Hank knocks him out. Like, this is the thing. This movie this is why this film doesn't feel like a comedy. Like, the marketing was wrong for the film. Yeah, it is a bit more fun and crazy than Darren's Underworld and works, but it's still pretty dark, serious, and brutal at times. There's only small doses of comedy, and other than that, it's not really a comedic film. Like, and I like here, what I liked is that Darren didn't let his religious beliefs get in the way of this movie, and actually made this story go actually normal. Like, this felt like the most normal film he's done since The Wrestler and Black Swan. Like, how dark the story goes, like, then again, it's Darren Aronofsky, who is known for a lot of dark material. He actually does the tones like stuff like Martin Scorsese or Guy Ritchie at their peaks. Yeah, some could say it's a normal Darren Aronofsky movie, but the thing is that you have like some of these little crime mafia like themes. Like, this is stuff Darren Aronofsky's not really real known for. He's known for stuff like, trauma effects, and which you do get a little bit of in here with Hank and the whole accident scene, or the attacks he gets from some of these intruders when the car breaks apart, and like in that whole spit. And the other important thing is that with Hank on his journey, like, it really comes to like a lot of this whole cat and mouse chase, because with this whole key, like, either he doesn't know where this key is, and he finds out what this key really is, and you find out why everybody's after this key. And Austin Butler really sells his bewilderment and pain on multiple fronts, and like that, as Hank understands how much hell it is, but these opposing sides are on the hunt for these millions, and he can play some of them off one another until he really can't. Like, he's not some immortal action hero. Like, no, he's actually a pretty normal human being. Like, a normal human being that's now just dragged into this predicament because his neighbor left the cat with him, and this cat was hiding something. And then these people enter his apartment, and now he's just dragged into this whole mess. Like, he even calls out Russ in that point. Like, you realize all the shit you put me through? Which, yeah, it is kind of true. The guy got beat up multiple times, and then his girlfriend died. Like, there's intense turns, there's neck breaks, there's shocking bouts of violence. And our own place is like, it's in the right doses, and it keen plans and pays off in the script. And so, now when it comes to the other performances, I would say, Regina King, we haven't seen Regina King in a while, so, who is from films like Daddy Daycare, or from, where else can I think of? Moving out. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, like, was kind of prominent in the 2000s, and actually really just isn't really too memorable a villain. She kind of just plays a character that doesn't really have a lot of personality. Zoe Kravitz, I liked. It sucks they killed her off, and they did it way too damn early. Matt Smith, and I thought he did pretty good with the British punk persona. It really does well in with this whole like Guy Ritchie direction that Darren Aronofsky does. And he has some good chemistry with Austin Butler. Like, when they kind of have to work together near like kind of like the whole climax of the film, and that's the kind of the thing. He disappears for a majority of the film after the beginning, and he doesn't really come back till the climax. And Lee Schreiber actually does well playing this stoic Hebrew character. And his dynamic with Dion Onofrio is actually pretty good, and Vincent D'Onofrio is actually also pretty good. Like, both these two playing these two Hebrew characters actually do well with their accents. Everyone plays entertaining characters. It makes me feel punky. And so, Hank goes to meet Roman and the Russians at Flushing Meadows. And Hank offers them Russ and the key in exchange for Bud, but once Russ finds out who he's being handed to, because originally, like, Russ got knocked out when he was about to flee with the money, Russ then panics, and so Alexei is killed by Pavel's gun, and they escape with Hank and Bud, and Hank even has this distraction because they go through a baseball stadium when they're being chased after at the Krasny Stadium. Like, he's pretty much like, hey, that guy said fuck this team, get him, and And so the angry fans attack them so they can escape, and they manage to escape on the subway, and they can't catch up to them. But unfortunately, Russ succumbs to his injuries and dies. But Hank promises that he's going to take care of Bud. And his last line's, "You better fucking do." And so he boards a bus with Bud to Coney Island. Then, it seemed, when you think the movie would probably just end solely there, it doesn't end there, because it gets woken on the beach by a call from Roman. And it turns out Roman has now framed him for everything that's happened in the film, and is going to threaten to kill his mom if he does not bring the key to the Russian supper club. So Hank warns his mother on the phone and surrenders himself to the Druckers, and so he goes to the Druckers, and they bring him to his house for a little bit, and they agree that they'll kill Roman in exchange for Hank leading him to the money. But right there, and so that's when you get the bit where they bring him to their house, and it's their mother shovels dinner, and once they get to the club where they're going to meet Roman, they zip tie Hank to the car steering wheel so while they storm the club, and that's when you kind of get a little suspicious of these guys, because to be fair, when you first met these guys actually seem pretty evil. When you first meet them, I mean, they chased Hank. But then you think, oh wait, were they just helping this guy the whole time? But then they zip tie him to the wheel of the car, and then you get kind of suspicious again. You know something's still not right about these people. And they shoot down the club. And like, this is a film that will probably grow on some people over time. Like, I mean, as much as I did have some problems with the film, like, it was still very entertaining. Some characters could have been a little less overly eccentric, but some of these characters were still entertaining in their roles. Especially kind of like some of the henchmen. I feel like some of the henchmen could have been improved. And there's like some shocks that do really surprise me a lot. Like the shock with Roman being a corrupt cop was actually quite a shocking twist. And you can tell Darren actually having fun directing this film with some of the well-shot chases, the solid minor jokes, and some shootouts in between the somber moments. And the recreation of 90s New York. It really feels authentic and well lived in. And heck, like, the movie even feels shot like a film you would see in the 90s. And the concept is interesting as this good crime thriller. Especially, like, if it was a film like you would see from someone like Guy Ritchie, like, back in their prime. It's definitely a typical Aronofsky film, though, that does follow a singular lead character who goes through this story, progresses through their past traumas. Plot structure is a little simple and surface level, and the character writing is good, especially for the protagonist, and provides depth to the storyline, who started off as this failed baseball player, and their past trauma really makes them scared and vulnerable. And the screenplay is pretty good. The dialogue is entertaining, the profound moments, the humor, when it's minorly there, it's present for an Aronofsky film. It's not as deep as some of his other character studies. I mean, his isn't Darren Aronofsky, but the foreshadowing when you get into the film, it's definitely expected for the bookends. And the movie takes you on different turns that you don't expect. So, now we get on with the finale of the film. So, they spot Roman, and Hank burns his restraints with the car lighter, escapes the car, and gets chased with a bat. He's able to subdue Pavel, kill him, and then manages to injure Roman. Then the Druckers arrive and they shoot her dead. And so, it seems like the bad guys are all dead. And Hank reveals he hid the key in the bandage of Bud's leg. And the brothers are sympathetic, and they decide that they will let him live with a share of the money. And they make him drive since the crash, and then you find out even these guys were not good. Because Hank notices that Lipa has a lighter from Yvonne, and realizing the whole thing and noticing he's the only one wearing a seatbelt, he realizes that they'll probably still kill him anyway. They're not going to be true to their word. And it turns out, well, you ran away. We had no choice. We had to kill her. And that's another shocking twist. Like, at first it seemed like maybe these guys are all so bad, or wait, are these guys actually good? Were they actually trying to help him? It turns out they weren't. They needed the money from him too. They just did it in a more civil way. But now that the people that are opposing them are dead, now they can get the money, and they lie that they'll spare him, but it's clear they probably won't. So, Hank then realizes it. Hank then decides to get revenge for her death. He crashes the car into a pillar and kills both of them as payback for her death. And so Hank realizes, though, he's now still a criminal, still a wanted criminal for everything he got framed for, and it's probably going to be further wanted because Roman is dead. He poses as Russ to escape the country with Bud and half the money. Then he calls his mother to let her know he's safe, and he arrives in Tulum to begin a new life. Where first he stops at this bar, watches a bit of a baseball game, but then shuts the TV off and stares out at the ocean. And his mother gets the rest of the money. And that's how Caught Stealing ends. Like, Roman and the Hebrews are dead, but sadly Yvonne is also dead. Hank has to flee the country because he's framed now and start a new life. And the only company he has now left is Bud, Russ's cat. But there is something a little weird, something a little bit surprising. It's an ending where the protagonist actually comes out on top. Because if you've seen a lot of other films from Darren Aronofsky, stuff like Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, The Whale, Black Swan, usually his masterpieces, the main characters never come out on top. Either they get horrible endings or they tragically die. Protagonist in The Whale, he was able to finally show the good in his daughter, but he still died. He died peacefully, but he still died. The Wrestler lost his daughter. Like Mickey Rourke's character, he lost his daughter. He quit his job. He didn't end up liking it there anymore. He had to go back to wrestling. And guess what? The person he thought he had left tried to stop him, but then when that turned out to be fatal, she left. She left the ring and she didn't even stay. So he leaped in, and for what it implies, he probably did die. Because in that movie, he can't wrestle anymore because of his heart attack. So, Mickey Rourke's character probably did die off camera. You just don't get to see it. You just don't get to see it. It's just kind of up to your imagination. But I think he probably did die once he finished that pose. Natalie Portman's character in Black Swan, she died at the end. Okay, maybe Jared Leto's character did. Maybe the characters in Requiem for a Dream didn't die per se, but they got fucked up endings. Jared Leto's character, arm got all infected from all the frequent drugs he kept taking, had to get that half of that amputated off. Marlon Wayans' character got arrested, has to suffer abuse in jail. Jennifer Connelly's character has to basically live the sex life. Basically live the prostitute life. Ellen Burstyn's character got the worst ending of them all. She fell for this scam phone call, took all these diet pills that made her insane, had to be committed to a psychiatric ward, and will probably never get out because she probably won't recover. And she'll live in this loony state for the rest of her life. So, this was actually pretty refreshing. This was actually refreshing to see the main character from Darren Aronofsky actually kind of come out triumphantly in the end. Somewhat-ish. I mean, not get an overly bleak ending for once. Unless you count Noah, but except that version of Noah is horribly written, so that version of Noah shouldn't have really gotten his happy ending either. Now, does the movie have bad qualities? The marketing makes it look like this comedic action film, like maybe a film like Bullet Train, or a film like Nobody 2, or a film like Fight or Flight. But it's not either of those. It's more of a pretty serious Guy Ritchie film. There's small moments of humor, but most of the film is actually straight up serious. I feel like some of the henchmen characters were a little bit annoying. I feel like they could have been written a little bit better. The climax does feel like it kind of stretches itself, but it's still entertaining. And what else can I think of? Oh yeah, I hated they killed off Zoe Kravitz. I thought that was a big mistake for the film to do. You did not need to kill her off. You could have still had her live. You could have had her team up with him. She didn't need to die. Other than those, I liked Caught Stealing, and I would definitely recommend it. So in the end, I would say Caught Stealing is another worth buying from Darren Aronofsky if you want to see him do a Guy Ritchie-styled action thriller mafia film, different from his other works. Anyways, that's it for my review of Caught Stealing, and when I go in Caught Stealing, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see Darren direct a Guy Ritchie-styled action thriller, then I would still watch a bias movie for your collection for sure, no doubt. If we're going to go in Caught Stealing, I'm going to give Caught Stealing an 8 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for Caught Stealing. Now, I want to know in the comments down below what you guys thought about Caught Stealing, whether you love this movie, whether you thought this film just wasn't really for you. Until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.